So Ladan just asked me about after this module, so this is our last class, and then in March we're going to do 3, 4 classes on the preliminary praxis. So to answer Ladan's question, we haven't done this before in these 2 years. So what we're going to talk about is the need for preliminary praxis, which are, for example, the main two we'll talk about is prostrations or the 35 Buddha practice and Vajrasattva. But in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, there are actually 9 preliminary practices. Yay! And of course, it's not necessarily that we might get to all of them this life, but there is a need for us to be able to start making an effort if we want to develop our mind more in these modules, this Discovering Buddhism, there's 3 principles of the path, the lam-rim. If we want to develop our mind more in them, there is a need for us to do preliminary praxis, which means purifying and collecting merit, which I have talked about quite a lot during the classes, the need for us to do that. And we do it in some ways when we do these prayers, when we start the prayers, but there's a more extensive way of doing preliminaries. So I'm going to just give an introduction to those, why we need them in the first class, what they are, what the 9 are, and then go into a little bit more detail on the Vajrasattva and the 35 Buddha practice. And also on top of that, just as maybe an inspiration, what we're hoping to do, I'm hoping we'll do, in the FPMT North American region, and of course you can live outside North America too, but we're hoping, as they have done in Australia, they've set up these kind of group preliminary praxis, a way where as a group, even though everyone does in their own home, but you can start one of the preliminary praxis together as a group, and you will have an oversight from a teacher. You'll get some teachings on that practice more specifically, and then there'll be a time when you can all start the practice and do it together, because it's very difficult to get the momentum to do it on your own, right? It's not easy. Once you just, 100,000 this, 100,000 that. As we see, we're doing this DB class. A few of us have been coming for a long time now. So, congratulations those who have been coming for 2 years, or close to that. So we need that group energy, the Sangha. So I'm hoping in the next year or two, the region they haven't started the project yet, but there it is on the list to provide an opportunity for people to do those praxis together. Because they take some months. It's like this is a 2-year course. Each of those preliminaries might take you a year, 2 years. Some might take less, depending on the time you have available to do every day. So anyway, I'll mention that again when we do the class, but I wanted to say that there will be an opportunity, I think at some point, to do them more together, That'll be much easier when other people are doing the same thing, even though you're all doing it at home. Any more questions with that before we start? Any other general questions?
And if it's okay, I'll let folks know that after today, I'll send an email just to give a little bit of helpful guidance according to what friend Angie said of the next step. And just to also for you to know what's coming up after, so you have a little bit of a longer term view, because Venerable Angie will still continue teaching DB with Geshe Lexo.
With the new group. And also there will be an assessment for this. Yes, I'll get your question in a second, Hannah. There will be an assessment for this module, as we've always done. So I do encourage you not to be shy, but it's really good just to go. It's just going over and seeing what you remember about the module. So I think even though it does, just do what you can, and if you can do it, it would be great. If you don't have time, that's fine. But I think it's really for your own self-study and to be so. What did I get out of this module? What did I get? What did I not get right? It's okay, but it helps you just to go over it again. Because we know just by hearing it's not enough, you know, we need to reflect, we need to meditate. So part of that reflection can come through doing the assessment and again, not being heavy on yourself, you know, and that's why I think it's very good, and I do this myself, and some of you are doing it, but I think it's really good. You know, sometimes I take notes and I don't even look at them after, you know, but I would encourage you to have the habit of taking notes at teachings, even if it's on your pad or on your writing or whatever. And actually I guess we've all been watching the peace, it's not a march, but the peace walk, sorry, with the monks, yeah. So it's very, incredible, you know, thousands of people they're affecting, you know. And actually the head monk, sorry, I can't remember his name, something maybe does, but anyway, very beautiful being, you know. He was giving a talk, and he was encouraging people to wake up in the morning and write down, I think it was something like, wake up, be peaceful and have a peaceful day, something, you know. He was just talking about the power of actually writing something down, you know, as opposed to just keeping it in the mind. So, I mean, you know, I probably didn't really mention, this is the last day of the course, so it's not the best day to say it, but I think moving forward, I really encourage, unless you've got a razor sharp memory, I mean, I rejoice, you know. But how many of us have got that kind of memory, you know? Because even me, I'll be listening to a teach and I'm going, oh, I'll definitely remember that. That was so, like, key and profound, and then I get up and I go away, and the next day it's like, well, he said something like this, you know, or she said some, you know, we don't quite hold it, you know. So of course we can go back and listen to the teachings, but I think it's very good to take some just key notes, you know, especially then if you do the assessment, you can go back and it'll be easier, it's in your notes, you know, and some of it's in the reading too. But I think for all of us, Rinpoche always used to make this point when he was in teachings in his last few years. Rinpoche would say, write that in your diarrhea book, you know. Called it your diarrhea, instead of your diary, you know. So I think that I know for myself it's very important. And, you know, sometimes you don't have to write scrolls, because scrolls we're not going to go over, but just key points, I think it can be very helpful. Hannah?
I think you mentioned before that you might be okay with sharing your slides. Is that still
Oh yes, I'll send
possible?
them. I'll send them with the assessment. Okay, so you've got them. But please don't
Okay.
share them out beyond this group, because there might be a couple of images on there I wasn't supposed to use. I don't think there's
Okay,
many,
thank
but there
you.
might be one or two, you know. So just keep it. It doesn't really make a lot of sense anyway outside the group for people, you know. So yes, thank you for reminding me, Hannah. I'll do that. Any other questions? All right. So I'm going to share the PowerPoint, and we're just going to do a very simple, because there's a few things we need to cover now that we're at the end of the class. So just, what have I done there? Move that down. There you go. Hannah, did you have another question? Or you're finished? Your hand's still up. No? Okay. Right, so Hugh and Jeanette, have a question?
Yeah, I'm really sorry to change the subject here, but I'm about to lose power on this phone, and I can't seem
Oh,
to get into the meeting on my laptop without a password.
without the password.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
Bay
didn't
could
get a
send you
link.
the password, yeah?
Yeah. Anyways,
No, that's okay, that's important. Ideally, you can stay in. So for the rest of us, while Bay's doing that, let's just take a couple of minutes to settle our mind. And if it's helpful to do the 9-round breathing exercise, since it's night time, mine can get a bit foggy and sleepy. Otherwise, just taking an hour, a minute, a minute just to be with the breath, the body and the breath, whatever you need to sort of settle and clarify the mind. In that space, just bringing about your motivation. And with that motivation, we're just going to briefly do the prayers tonight, just go through in a quicker way. We're going to take refuge. So what is refuge with the motivation? And also refuge. Why do we take refuge? Thinking about that. And what kind of quality, when we take refuge, what kind of quality comes to mind, or qualities, when we think about Buddha, Dharma and Sangha? Sangye chodan sogi chognam la janchu bardu dagi gyapsu ji dagi chen sogi be sonange jula penjir sangye drubar shu sangye chodan sogi chognam la janchu bardu dagi gyapsu ji dagi chen sogi be sonange jula penjir sangye drubar shu. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. Do a short mandala offering. So again, I'm leaving it on your side. What mandala, what do we visualize? What do we think? How do we offer? Taking a moment, whatever understanding to bring that about in your mind, clarify that, why. What it is. Osajibogi joshe meto ramri rablingji nye de gyambadi sangye jindu mete uwaye droge namdak jina chobar shok Yidam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniyatayami Dayada O Mine Mine Maha Mine Yesuha Dayada O Mine Mine Maha Mine Yesuha Dayada O Mine Mine Maha Minaye Soha Tayada O Mine Mine Maha Minaye Soha Tayada O Mine Mine Maha Minaye Soha Tayada O Mine Mine Maha Minaye Soha. Okay, so for tonight, second. I wanted to ask something, but I need to find my notes to remind myself what I was going to ask you. Right. So here we have this slide. I can't remember if I put this up the last time, but never mind. We'll just start here again. Just as a recap, Sutra methods purify obscurations and gather the two accumulations gradually. They do not deliberately access the very subtle, clear light mind. Therefore, the realization of emptiness occurs with grosser levels of consciousness. So we discussed this already, the differences between Sutra and Tantra. So we, even in Sutra, why it's like why we practice Tantra, or why we practice Tantra with Sutra. Because as it's saying here, yes, we can realize emptiness. Even at the level of Sutra, one can achieve self-liberation, liberation from samsara, a deep, deep peace that's free from the gross afflictions, free from ignorance, attachment and aversion. These are the three afflictions we're trying, the main ones. There's many others, but these are the main ones that we need to purify, we need to pacify, subdue in our mental continuum. Ignorance is the main troublemaker, the main one that causes us to grasp at a wrong view of self. Okay? So even at the level of sutra, on the sutra path, it takes much longer time. That realization of emptiness that you get at sutra allows self-liberation. One to go into one's own state of peace, no longer to take rebirth. However, there's a more subtle level of consciousness, the subtle clear light mind, that we are trying to access in Tantra, and that is still hidden with what we call the stains of the delusions. Like the example is, and I've probably mentioned before, but we hear it all the time, it's like you put garlic inside a container or a vessel, so you take the garlic out, it's like taking the delusions out of the mind, ignorance, attachment, anger, but there's still a smell of the garlic, in there, in the bowl. So that's like the subtle imprints of the delusions of anger, attachment, especially ignorance. There's subtle imprints that are left on the mind, and those we need to clear. And that's what we need to work on in the tantric path, by accessing what we call a more subtle level of consciousness, or subtle clear light mind that's completely unstained by even the imprints of the delusions. So this is kind of what we've been talking about over the last 3 weeks, and just in a nutshell. So this is why, according to the Mahayana Tantra tradition, through the practice of Tantra, we can remove these subtle delusions, these subtle, or what we call imprints of the delusions, stains of the delusions that still block us from achieving full enlightenment, block us from being completely capable to benefit all sentient beings, to see their quality of minds, their capacity, their state of mind, the level of their delusion, their karma, their imprints. We cannot see them just at the level of what we call an arhat, or someone who's achieved liberation for themselves, liberation from samsara. So actually the main reason we practice Tantra is because we want to remove these subtle, imprints, so we can become completely capable to free all sentient beings. We know all their levels in mind and consciousness, all their karma. So that's actually what is called the main motivating factor for practicing Tantra. It's the bodhicitta motivation. Wanting to, recognizing that all sentient beings have been our kind mothers, friends, brothers, sisters, and feeling like we can't just abandon them. We can't just leave them, suffering in samsara. Constantly in the cycle of birth and death, constantly under the control of karma and delusion, popping from one rebirth to the next, from one realm to the next. So of course that takes some contemplation, and we only really get there once we kind of really feel the peace that we experience when we remove our own delusions. When we really understand more deeply the nature of how delusion harms our own mind, affects our own experience, how we are constantly in a place where our reality is distorted. We're not seeing reality properly. And that takes some meditation and some insight. I mean, sometimes we know we're not seeing things clearly, yeah? But we don't recognize that all the time we're not seeing things clearly. Every moment, because the mind's covered by ignorance, grasping at the wrong view of self, and that distorts our reality. So this is why with Tantra we want to, really the motivation to practice Tantra becomes deeper, becomes clearer, the more we recognize our own suffering. And the beauty of Tantra is, though, when we use the skillful means of Tantra, it opens up more quickly these more profound, subtle consciousnesses that help us to see our confusion, see our delusion, see how ignorance is clouding our mind, clouding our reality, clouding our ability to really properly help others. Of course, we need to be kind and helpful to others, but even compassion doesn't really mean just being kind, as we know. It really comes much more deeply when we see every being is confused by ignorance, Every being is creating a kind of samsara for themselves over and over again until they remove ignorance grasping at true existence. It's a kind of, for myself, I don't know if I've really experienced that kind of compassion deeply, but it must be quite it must move you very deeply when you can really see something like that directly, Of course, we feel moved or when someone's suffering from, cancer, disease, problems of the body, but this is a much deeper level of suffering. And likewise, a much deeper level of compassion you feel for others when you recognize your own confusion in your own mind and how much it's been creating this constant suffering. So just to ask a question, I can't remember if I asked this in this class or not, but I'll ask again. So what are the two accumulations? Here, sutra methods purify obscurations and gather two accumulations. What are these? Just to see where we're at, For those of us who've been doing the whole module, we're getting familiar with some of this terminology, Sometimes we know what it is, but we just don't know the term. We're not familiar with the terminology because there's 2 of this and 4 of that and 6 of this. The two accumulations. Now, we have mentioned it. Yes, Stan?
Would that be wisdom and merit?
Yes. So these are, to overcome the delusions. So to overcome the ignorance grasping at true existence, which one do we need, Stan?
Turning off my microphone. Would you repeat the question?
So to overcome the wisdom, to overcome the I've just told you that. To overcome the ignorance grasping at true existence, what do we need? Which one is more important? Which is the key one?
I think possibly merit. I mean, we have to have wisdom, of course, but I can't say which was more important. But it seems like we can't achieve that without merit.
Well, you're right, actually. It's true. That is a good point. Good answer. Because, we still need merit to realise emptiness. So we do need both of them. But, of course, the direct antidote as well to ignorance is the wisdom grasping at true existence. So,
that's right.
So that's a good answer. We need both of them, We need both of them. And, of course, to develop bodhicitta, no doubt we need both of them too. But particularly we need to develop merit, a certain fortune. Because it's a very, very, high state of mind, bodhicitta. One needs to have a lot of determination. So what are the 5, in terms of the 6 perfections, which ones would sort of settle more on the merit side, creating merit, There's 5 of them that would create more merit, This is what a bodhisattva strives to achieve, these 6 perfections in all their actions, trying to utilize these 6 perfections, train in these, And these are really the accumulation of merit and wisdom on the sutra level. Joe, 6 perfections?
Oh, hang on. Generosity, patience, ethical living,
Yes.
Something concentration.
Yes.
I can't count. I don't even know how many I've got. Sorry.
One more.
Oh gosh.
You're almost there.
How long have people got?
No, but let's see if someone else knows the other one.
Yeah.
You've done well. Someone else has their hand raised, so you could maybe do the other one. Who else? Someone else? Or Rick? Rick, do you know the other one?
Joanne had her hand raised.
Oh, Joanne. Joanne, what's the other
And
one?
Dan also typed something in the chat.
Okay.
Enthusiasm or effort, diligence.
Diligence. And did I think there's one more, but maybe I missed that. Did Joe say that one? Starting with a P.
Enthusiasm.
Yeah, joyful effort. Did Joe already said patience? Did you say that, Joe?
I did say patience.
Okay, yeah.
But yes,
So
joyous
joyful
effort was
effort.
the other one.
Yeah, joyous effort. Yeah, well done. So these are more on the merit side, you know. Of course, you still can utilize wisdom when you're practicing them, remembering emptiness. But these are more like, as a bodhisattva, this is what we're trying to practice. These in our daily life. I mean, patience. Oh, we've all got practice. I mean, the practice of patience in our daily life is the opportunities are endless. Yeah. Generosity. Joyous effort. Joyous effort is important because we need a lot of that to practice virtue. You know, a lot of effort, feeling joyful, energy to practice that. And of course, practicing morality, taking vows. You know, taking pratimoksha vows, like our lay vows, taking bodhisattva vows, taking tantric vows. These all develop incredible merit on the path, you know, the accumulations of merit through the those 5 perfections. And of course, the last one being the perfection of wisdom is the last one. So that's also accumulating the perfection, you know, the merit, the accumulation of wisdom, you know, through that one. So they gather sort of more gradually through the practice of the 6 perfections. We do that in the sutra method. But of course, even when we're practicing Tantra, of course, I've talked about how Tantra is skillful in combining method and wisdom together in the visualizations we do, in the praxis we do, in the mantras. In the psychology of Tantra, you're unifying sutra and, you know, these two together. But still, even when you're practicing those, we have to practice the 6 perfections. You know, we need to gather in these 2 accumulations with as much as we can in our practice, with our body, speech, and mind. All right. So just Stan, you had a question.
I can't remember if it was in this class or some other talk I listened to, but there was a commentary about all of these 6 perfections are kind of supporting one another. For example, when we're practicing generosity, it's because of ethical behavior. It's because of when we're practicing ethical behavior, it's because of generosity. It's because of they're all kind of connected to one another, combined in a way. I don't know if I'm saying this very clearly. If we're practicing patience, it's because of generosity, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Did you
No,
mention
you're right.
that in this
No,
class?
I didn't mention it in this one, but there is a teaching that you can go through how to practice the 6 perfections in one action. You know,
Right.
I mean, you know, certain ways that you can practice the 6 perfections. As you say, they're all kind of in there. So you're right. It's not necessarily okay. This time I'm going to practice generosity. No, you can practice generosity while you're holding vows. You know, so morality, of course, the perfection of morality. As long as we're holding lay vows, no killing, no lying, and stealing. Lama Zopa Rinpoche says even in our sleep we create merit because we've taken those vows. They're in our mental continuum. So, of course, if you've taken lay vows or bodhisattva vows, when you practice generosity, well, in there is you're holding vows and you're practicing generosity. So you're practicing morality and generosity. And if you can say, if you do it patiently, you know, with a mind of patience, you know, not getting kind of maybe upset if you give somebody something but they don't like it. You get upset, you know. But no matter what, you know, that's an example of you can practice generosity, but then somebody might not like it and then you get upset. And, you know, so there's situations can happen like that. But if you give with no expectation, you know, with no expectation of thank you, you know, then even if somebody doesn't say thank you, know, maybe they're not, you know, you practice patience with in that action. And of course, if we remember, and then you do it joyfully, remembering that I'm doing this to achieve enlightenment for all. You know, if we have the attitude that whatever I'm doing it to achieve enlightenment for all sentient beings, that's a joyous effort, that's a bodhicitta motivation. If we do it with a level of concentration, when we're aware of giving the action, maybe well motivated, well dedicated, You know, that's a level of concentration. And then, of course, if we remember emptiness in there, we remember that our cells, the object, the person we offer to and the object we offered and the karma are empty, then you've also got the wisdom. You're creating the accumulation of wisdom in there as well. So you're right, with every action, if we're very skillful, we can practice within even one action either 6 or a few of those perfections. They're not done individually. So I think that's what you're referring to, Stan. Yeah, you heard that. Maybe I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but that is correct what you're saying. You know, you can practice all of them simultaneously. You know, all 6 of them in one action, or at least 2 or 3 in one action, depending on what you're doing. So, and that's how you skillfully accumulate so much merit. So much, you know, one more quickly is going to enlightenment if we can practice them all more simultaneously. I mean, it takes a level of awareness, a level of concentration, a level of mindfulness and effort, you know, but slowly through time, you know, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they embody the 6 perfections, you know, that their mind is just imbued with the 6 perfections. Even the ornaments and the the silks on someone, like, for example, one of the deities like Tara, she's adorned with the 6 perfections. You know, her adornments are the 6 perfections, the perfection of those. You know, that's her pores are the 6 perfections. Bodhicitta is the completion of the 6 perfections in one's mental continuum. That kind of takes us on to the next slide of the bodies of the Buddha, you know. So, because this is really the main reason with the mind that one can't bear, Lama Zopa Rinpoche used to say that, you know, once we understand more and more deeply the evolution of our own suffering and really feel it's something, we kind of have to get to this point where we feel our own suffering is we feel kind of unbearable. You know, that's quite, it's a bit of a realization to get there, you know. But when we really meditate deeply and we start to feel like, gosh, I'm just going life after life after life in a body, I don't know what body, I don't know where, I'm not on top of death. You know, I mentioned this before, that, you know, the holy beings, they're on top of death. I'm not sure, maybe some of you are, you know. But, you know, we have to be honest and say that we're not able to control our own death process right now, yeah? We just hope for the best, probably. And hopefully, if we keep studying and meditating and reflecting, when death time comes, we'll have a level of ability, a level of calmness, peace. Maybe we'll have a practice that we know we're going to do at the death time, you know? Because we've been practicing for some years, so we know, okay, that when the death comes, I'm going to do this, that, and the next thing, you know. I'm aware, you know, I've got it all set up, and we might not be able to completely be in control of the death process, but we might have some ability to know that we're going to have at least a peaceful death and a good rebirth. Because that's, you know, that's what we're trying to do in the first level of spiritual practitioner, have a good rebirth, which is foreign for many as Westerners until we have to think about it more, you know. We don't think about that. But hopefully after 14 modules here, 13 modules, some of us are thinking about that, you know. A little bit differently. Not completely, but a little bit differently, you know. And many of us are getting older. So we need to think about it. We haven't got a choice, you know. So anyway, so why we practice Tantra, yeah, it's definitely to get a good future rebirth, to develop bodhicitta, to get enlightened, to realise emptiness. But the main reason is, you know, eventually to achieve what we call these bodies of a Buddha. The truth body, the Dharmakaya, and the form body, the Rupakaya. Right, so these are the 2 bodies, Dharmakaya. So right now we have our body, right? We have this body. The Buddhas, they don't have that. They no longer take this body of flesh, blood, bones, all that, you know, because they have awakened what we, you know, this deepest level of consciousness, this clear light mind, right? We have 3 levels of consciousness: gross, subtle, very subtle. In Tantra, we're accessing the clear light, that most deepest part of yourself that goes from life to life, that's pure and unstained, clear light nature. When we can meditate there, when we can get there, from there, when we realize the nature of that mind, emptiness, it's another level of emptiness. It's just a deeper, more subtle level of emptiness than they achieve in sutra level. From there, we can achieve what we call the truth body, the Dharmakaya, the wisdom truth body, and the form bodies of the Buddha. So that's actually what we are trying to do in Tantra. That's the main goal. Especially we hear about these a little bit more when we go into high Shoga Tantra. So, so what does this body mean? Well, it's not a body, as I say, flesh, blood, bones, all these things. It's a body really here, a kaya. It's more like a body of experience. It's the experience that the Buddha has. I mean, it does, like we see when we go into temples and we see many statues, So those statues symbolize the body experience of the Buddha. Because we can't see these bodies right now. We're not, I mean, maybe you can. I'm just talking for myself, but we can't see these bodies. So what we have is statues to remind us that we can achieve these bodies. This is where we want to go. Who wants to keep getting old? I tell you, it's not pleasant, right? I mean, dementia and this and that. I mean, all these things. Nobody, if we had a choice, there's no way we would be wishing for any of that, And we don't have, at the moment, we don't have the power to shift that. But this is what the Dharma's all about. We can change. We can shift it. And we can achieve, on the tantric path, for the benefit of all sentient beings, these bodies, which are more an experience, but they do manifest in a bodily form because we need to be able to see and communicate with them. So a kaya is not a physical body, but it's a dimension or facet of the Buddha's experience. As I said, the Buddha's experience is day and night, the six perfections. Day and night, wisdom and compassion. They're never separated from these mind states. And because, so right now, maybe if I go to the Dharmakaya. So the Dharmakaya, just in a nutshell, Lama Yeshe describes it as a limitless, blissful awareness unified with emptiness. So that's what. So if we can access the most subtle mind of clear light, either at the death time or in this life in our meditation, it's very easy to realize emptiness there because it's so pure. That mind state is completely peaceful, completely pure, and it's got a natural concentration. So it's true, sometimes when we meditate, we get more peaceful, When we get into more subtle states in mind, the mind feels naturally peaceful, naturally more concentrated. So imagine if you get into this most deepest level of our being, this most ancient part that goes from life to life. Why when we're around people who, if any of us who have been around someone who's passed away, and they're, they've had a good life, you feel the peace in the room, because what are they doing? Their mind, right at that time, they haven't left the body. They might stop breathing, but they haven't left the body, so their mind's in a place, this peaceful, clear light space. You can rest in that for up to 3 days. Even if you're not necessarily meditating, if you've had a very virtuous life, you will naturally stay in that clear light space. You can do up to 3 days before you pass, So say for high lamas, they stay in it they can stay much longer because they realize emptiness and they stay in that place of emptiness for many days. But this is what we call the Dharmakaya, the wisdom truth body of the Buddha. And this is coming out, this is expressed through the realization of emptiness that the Buddhas have. That body comes from that deep realization of emptiness. The other bodies, the Rupakaya, there's 2 different kind of manifestations of that. So, and also just to maybe just bring this in because Joanne asked me this question. And I said I would cover it in this class. So when we go into the death time and we've got the Dharma, we go in deep, deep, deep. All of us go into the clear light nature, but we don't necessarily achieve Dharmakaya, because Dharmakaya happens only when you realize the nature of that mind, only when you can meditate on that. You have you're consciously aware and meditating on that, and you realize its nature. So there's a difference between going into the clear light, the subtle mind, and just being there, as opposed to meditating in that space and realizing emptiness. Most of us miss that opportunity to meditate because we haven't trained in it this life. So we might rest in the clear, we might be there and we might hang out for a day or two at the death time, but we haven't built up the capacity and ability to meditate on that, so we recognize its empty nature. So we still mostly go into another rebirth. If we've sat there for some time, it's likely we'll have a good future rebirth, because we've created virtue. We might get born in a pure land, or we might go to a higher, have a precious human life. But for great meditators, they can meditate there and realize emptiness, the emptiness of that mind, and that's when you can achieve full enlightenment there, or the Dharmakaya, the wisdom truth body. So when we do practices in High Yoga Tantra, we try to meditate on these three bodies to achieve these three bodies. So when you dissolve the deity, you dissolve and you meditate on emptiness and try and imagine, try and think this is the Dharmakaya. So this is to try and answer your question, Joanne. So after we've been in the clear light at the time of death, we're in that subtle consciousness. So for great yogis and lamas who have meditated, realized emptiness there, they can arise as the Sambhogakaya. So then the mind comes out of the body, and because their mind's pure, they've realised the nature of the Dharmakaya, they can arise as the Sambhogakaya, the enjoyment body of the Buddha, from that state. Instead of being born as a bardo being, before you take your next rebirth, you take a 49-day bardo period. So instead of doing that, you arise as the enjoyment body. So ordinary beings have a bardo body. It's still like a sort of light body, but it's not a Buddha body. But you sort of jostle around in that realm for about up to 49 days as a bardo being. And then you take your rebirth, what you're going to take rebirth is. But for holy beings, they transform that time when the mind comes out of the body into another body, they transform that into the enjoyment body of the Buddha, Sambhogakaya. Now this body, like we see the image of Tara or Chenrezig with the ornaments, all the Buddhas who have ornaments, jewels and ornaments, that's a Sambhogakaya aspect of the Buddha, enjoyment body. Now that body, the Buddhas can manifest in that state, that is only seen by other bodhisattvas, other Arya bodhisattvas, Arya beings. We still, at our level, can't see them, And those Sambhoga, those enjoyment bodies can give many, many teachings to many beings, who can see them. That's their job, is to teach, to guide others in the Dharma, that's their only job. They're not doing anything else. And then there's a little bit more grosser level of body, that ones that we would have more chance to see and have teaching from, the Nirmanakaya aspect. So again, at the level of the time of death, you have the clear light mind, and if you realise the empty nature of that, you achieve the Dharmakaya, the truth body of the Buddha. That body arises from the wisdom realising emptiness. Then for all of us, we come out of the body, the wind and mind move out of the body, and we either take a bardo body, but for enlightened beings, they would manifest in that time as a Sambhogakaya, enjoyment body. And that body can benefit many, many what we call kind of beings who are more evolved on the path, Arya bodhisattvas. And then the next step we have to take, once we finish the bardo state, we have to take rebirth. Now, for high level beings, they would then manifest in a Nirmanakaya or emanation body. This is the other type of body. And don't worry if you don't get this too much. You don't need to get all these details, but it was because Joanne asked the question, I thought I would just cover how birth, death, death, bardo, and rebirth can be transformed into the three bodies of a Buddha. But this is, again, more at the level of High Yoga Tantra, but this is kind of what you're trying to do at High Yoga Tantra, transform that ordinary process into achieving these enlightened bodies of the Buddha. So it's quite a feat. You can tell. It's not an easy process, but it's possible, you know. So this is what we're trying to do in the sort of higher tantras, is to use these ordinary times and that we're all going to face and train this life to be able to do that at the death time. I'll get your question in a moment, Madhulika. So the Nirmanakaya body is like, you know how we see the image of the Buddha? The regular, you know, how Buddha normally is, seated on the lotus with the saffron robes of the monk. So that would be, and also the Buddha is called a supreme Nirmanakaya. The Buddha, when he came to this world, he was regarded as a supreme Nirmanakaya, an emanation body. He emanated to show how to achieve enlightenment. From the Mahayana perspective of the teachings, the Buddha was already enlightened when he came to this world, but he showed us, he came in the form of a regular Indian prince, you know, and he showed how you achieve enlightenment, you know. He displayed what we call the 12 deeds: renunciation, and, you know, giving up the kingdom, renunciation, you know, going off to meditate, finding teachers, and achieving enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, and then teaching for sentient beings. You know, there was these what you call 12 deeds that all the Buddhas perform or show when they manifest in this world. So according to the Mahayana teachings, he was already enlightened, but he showed us how to achieve enlightenment through the Nirmanakaya emanation body. Now, of course, Nirmanakaya, the Buddhas can also, you know, they can manifest as rocks, as birds, as animals, many different forms, you know, humans. They can do anything, you know, because they can go through matter, you know, they can transform anything. They can manifest as anything according to what we need, you know. As I say, I think many people think their dogs are Buddhas. We think Aloka's a Buddha, you know. the dog that's been following the monks, everybody thinks he's a Buddha bodhisattva, and he may well be, you know. Because, I mean, look at how much he's benefited, how much he softens the heart of so many beings, you know. So we never know. So the truth bodies, the Dharmakaya, comes from the wisdom realizing emptiness, that main one, you know, because that one, and that's the most subtle one, and only the other Buddhas can see that body. But that's no use to us. I mean, if the Buddha is just going to Dharmakaya and that subtle body experience, we can't see them. So they develop the Sambhogakaya and the Nirmanakaya to spontaneously benefit us who are still in samsara, who are still confused. We need a level of body. So yes, there's subtle levels. The Sambhogakaya is more subtle. It's only for higher level beings, but the Nirmanakaya can manifest in many, many different forms, gross and subtle. So for us, we need the Nirmanakaya, probably, you know. That one we need to see more. Madhulika? You had a question?
Yes, Venerable Angie. So for us lay people, if you can go back to the previous slide, what should we do to actually prepare for death and prepare for trying to, is it even possible for us to even achieve, like, let's say the first step, the Dharmakaya, like the Jnana Dharmakaya, as a lay person, let's say by doing meditation every day, taking vows and practicing and taking refuge. So I just want to know, is it even possible, or is this only for a Buddha?
No, it's not possible. We're just talking about this. No, of course. It's possible. There's many lay people who have achieved enlightenment. Milarepa was not a monk. But yes, these are not easy practices, right? We're not saying that this is something easy to achieve. But as I mentioned in the previous classes, whether you're a monastic or a lay person, if you can practice Tantra for 16 lifetimes, you take the Bodhisattva vows, the Tantric vows, you keep your commitments, up to 16 lifetimes, you can achieve these qualities. You can achieve these bodies. I mean, according to the Tantric teachings. So, most of this for us is not going to be this life, but, also when we think about it, we have a precious human, many of us work and we understand that, but there are many lay students I know who practice. They work, they have families, they practice. And okay, we might not achieve enlightenment in this life, but even through Tantra, Kriya Tantra, High Yoga Tantra, we can create very strong imprints to achieve these in future lives. Maybe in even a few future lives. So it's definitely possible for all of us. It depends on the effort you put and how much merit and create merit, purifying our obscurations. For many of us right now, that's an important focus, create merit and purifying. And just knowing, you see, it's very important to know what the path is and have an aspiration towards that. Because life after life, you get closer to that if we keep practicing life after life. So it's definitely possible. I think just the more we study and the more we meditate, the more we purify and practice. And I would say myself, maybe in the beginning it felt impossible, but I get, over the years, you get some more confidence that if I just keep doing this, karma's karma. If we create the karma, the causes, then these qualities will ripen in our mind stream sooner or later because of the power of karma. It's just, we just need to keep creating the causes, creating the merit, creating the karma, making the dedications, understanding a little bit more and more over time how to practice in a skillful way, not having expectations, but having aspirations. That's important as well. Not expecting, because if we have too many expectations, we'll give up too quickly, But also not feeling like, well, that's too hard for me, I can't do it. Again, this all comes through our confidence, our ability to practice, comes through just keep doing it. And slowly, maybe after 5 years, after 10 years, you feel there's a little bit there's some change in the mind. You understand the path more clearly. Even if we can't meditate on some of these in a deep way, the lamas and the teachers really, over time, when we're ready, do encourage us to take these practices and initiations because they create such powerful imprints for our future lives. The more you practice, the more you understand the power of imprint. The power of just creating the karma. What does imprint mean? Planting seeds. What we're doing right now is planting the field. Clearing the field, making the field air consciousness more clean, more ripe, and then planting seeds. So for many of us at the level of this type of practice, it's a bit like planting seeds. But these seeds will ripen. If we do the other causes and conditions around it, like, practicing the 6 perfections, keeping our vows, everything slowly it comes together. But yeah, we have to, just to keep accumulating, practicing, planting seeds, and be okay with that, And it's interesting how the mind, it will change. And understanding the path does take some lifetimes, and being okay with that. But not saying, okay, well, I've got lifetimes to go, so I'm not going to bother, It's not that either. Because why we start with the precious human rebirth at the very beginning of the path is not to freak ourselves out, but to actually recognise we're in a very precious situation where we can plant seeds right now. We have some faith, we have some conviction, we have an interest in the teaching, we have great teachers around, We have high lamas who are holding all these teachings, who can give initiations. I mean, we don't know how long that's going to last. So as much as we can, in a contented way, in a focused way, just keep going, you know. And that's why we need Sangha around us, because it's very easy to get distracted and do other things, you know. So we need to have people around us doing the same things and encouraging each other, and just, you know, just keep planting the seeds, you know, and going slowly, you go a wee bit deeper into these practices over time. It does happen. It does slowly you start to feel them a little bit more, and you think, okay, well, you know, I think maybe it's possible I could get out of this situation, this mess, you know. Just keep going. But being skillful in how you keep going. We have to be skillful in our practice, not pushing too much, not too many expectations, but creating aspirations and Sangha and, you know, doing some retreats and study, a nice, you know, collection of all of that. And just feeling like, okay, I'm doing a lot for my future lives, you know, and that being content with that alone, you know. And you never know, realizations might pour down this life, you don't know, you know. His Holiness always says that, don't have expectations, have aspirations, but, you know, if you have little expectation, whatever comes is great, you know. So like that, these... when the sun and moon rises, billions of reflections spontaneously arise in all the bodies of water on earth, in oceans, rivers, ponds, even drops of dew. Like this, effortlessly, spontaneously, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas work for sentient beings by revealing the various methods that suit them. So this is how the bodies of the Buddha work for us. I mean, even now, we do, maybe some of us are you know, when we can be quite spontaneously in our generosity. If we see a homeless person, we just want to give them something, or we see something on the news, we want to make a donation, or we just, you know, somebody comes to meet us, we want to offer coffee, or to, you know, we've got some already. We've practiced some in our past life, generosity, or we hear about the lay vows and we think, oh, that's something I need to do, you know, I need to take the no-killing vow, I need to take the no... Of course I know it's not good to harm. That's already something relatively spontaneous in us because we practiced in our past life. Mm-hmm. And that's what we need to take a lot of, you know, we need to feel happy about that in ourselves. That's wonderful. I've still got a bunch of stuff to do, but that's wonderful where I am right now. All of us have some of that right now. So at the level of the Buddha, you know, these bodies ripen spontaneously for sentient beings. Wherever sentient beings has a need, when you have the right merit or condition in your mind, the Buddhas will appear to you. Again, it could be a rock or a stone or a tree or a bird or a human being. It could be your lama, your guru, you know. When your karma ripens, the Buddhas appear in a form for you that you need to teach you, to guide you. This is what these Buddha bodies do, you know. It's a bit like a mother, you know, like she has, you know, sometimes a mother feels like she needs to be everywhere at the same time. You know? If she's got a few kids, you know, if you're a mother or a father, not wanting to be feminist here by any means, but mother or father, you know, and, you know, I mean, even you see that sometimes I see at the centre, there's so many things to do, you almost need like a few bodies to do it. Well, the Buddhas are able to manifest many bodies for many sentient beings according to their need, their disposition, and their merit, you know, what's going on. So like that, I mean, I feel personally, you know, Lama Zopa appeared to me, I mean, if he had appeared to me 5 years later, earlier, it would have been a waste of time, because my mind was not in that, you know, I would have just probably not even noticed him, you know. But when my mind was ready, because I had an interest in the Dharma, I'd been purifying, and then I was like, oh, I want to meet my guru, you know. But my mind was not just like some fanciful thing, but I felt like ready for that. Then I met Rinpoche, and then I was like, you know, I recognised that was my main teacher, because I was ready for that, you know. So they're not going to appear to us when we're not ready, but they'll appear in forms, even if it's just to help us create merit, as I say, by appearing as our pets or our animals or whatever, or a homeless person so we can give some money, or, you know, they will appear if it's going to help us on our path to enlightenment. That's when they appear. And according to our openness and our mental capacity and merit. As Lama Zopa Rinpoche says here, you're not alone, because all the time there are numberless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas surrounding you everywhere, loving you, guiding you. That's what they do. it's quite hard for us to imagine, but when we don't have ourselves to take care of, the mind is boundless. When we're not kind of absorbed in me, myself, and I, which we are mostly, we're not absorbed in this kind of level of self-cherishing, self-importance, then the mind, when the mind's liberated from that, it's completely boundless, you know. And that's where the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are. They've got rid of all that garbage, you know, all that deluded garbage that we're holding. And when the mind's free from that, it's unlimited what it can do to benefit sentient beings. And we all have that capacity. Doesn't matter if we're lay ordained, high level bodhisattvas, an ant, you know, we have it, you know. It's just a matter of keep working on it. Because it's unbelievable when we see the example of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. It's unbelievable. Even great saints and masters, even the other traditions that came to this world, what they do. It's mind-blowing how they can benefit so many sentient beings. So we all have that capacity. And we can all develop these Buddha bodies. You know, it's just where we want to put the importance for our lives. And we can still do it alongside our normal lives. We just create imprints and seeds as we move along. Only Tantra produces the Rupakaya, so I've mentioned this already. The Rupakaya depends on deity yoga, completion stage yogas, transformation of the subtle wind mind. So these are, I talked a little bit about deity yoga last week, you know, unifying our mind, our whole being, our body, speech and mind with the qualities of the deity, the qualities of the Buddha image, figure that we're working on. You know, that's what deity yoga is, becoming one with their qualities. And the Rupakaya, those kind of meditations, clear light, transforming death, bardo and rebirth, they come at the level of the high yoga tantra practices. So maybe at some point some of us might be ready. Some of us have taken already, and some of us might be ready to take them. Because even if we can't practice them really deeply this life, they create incredible imprints for next life. We have to think like that. Eventually we want to get there, you know. So maybe we just create seeds this life, and that's good. They don't exist in Sutra, only in the high yoga tantra practice. So I don't know if did I address this already? So why the Buddha, I think I really basically mentioned it, because I think Bay brought it up quite at the beginning of the class. So why the Buddha only manifested when he came to this world as the Nirmanakaya, emanation body, and displayed enlightenment on the sutra path. Why he achieved enlightenment through the sutra path that life, because he had already practiced Tantra in his previous lives. So he was able to come in, and so I think that's maybe answering your question, Bay. Yeah, so, because you had that question, yeah? Am I right? So according to, there's a couple of different ways I've read it said, but basically the Buddha did achieve full enlightenment because he had already created the causes for the Rupakaya in his previous lives. He'd practiced Tantra in previous lives. Because of course it's not possible for him to come into this world and just practice Sutra and get enlightened, you know. So he had practiced that in his previous life, so he had all the conditions to manifest enlightenment in that life. So it gets a little bit esoteric that way, you know. But that's how it's explained, you know, that he practiced Tantra in previous lives. Any questions or comments with that? That's quite a lot of, it's quite a lot of information there. But I think just take what you can and try and remember these bodies of the Buddha, what they are. So when you look at a statue, when you look at Tara, what is that? That's the enjoyment body, you know. When you look at the Buddha, that's an emanation body. Just trying to get familiar. When you look at statues, ask yourself, which body's that, you know. And these are all the bodies of the Buddha. All the Buddhas have these bodies, you know, and they manifest in different ways to benefit us, you know. Any questions so far with anything? There's a lot in the chats. Is there anything in the chats, or that's just kind of... nothing, no questions in the chats as much yet. All right. Okay,
Madhulika.
Madhulika. One more question.
So when Angie, you were saying, as you look at the various forms of Buddha, whether it is Shakyamuni Buddha, or if it is Chinesic, or if it is Tara, identify what type of body they belong to. If I understand right, you said the one with ornaments, for example, is the Sambhogakaya body.
Yes.
Is that what you're trying to say? Is like, but if I look at the statue of Shakyamuni Buddha, he doesn't have as much adornment. He doesn't have that
So
much.
which type of body is so that's a different aspect. It's a different body, you see. So which one is the Shakyamuni Buddha? Anyone else want to answer that for Madhulika? The one without the ornaments, Medicine Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha. There's two examples of ones without the ornaments. What kind is that?
Is that the emanation body?
Yes, that's right. That's the Nirmanakaya or emanation body. And that's a little bit more grosser level of body. And that's seen by beings who are not quite as highly as evolved as Arya Bodhisattvas. They're on a different path, you know. They're still on the same path, but they're not as evolved. You need to be more evolved to see the Sambhogakaya aspect of the Buddhas. You know, you need to be more purified. So Nirmanakaya emanation can manifest in many forms. In a more subtle form, like you see the image of the Buddha, but also like, as I say, like as our gurus, we would say our gurus, like His Holiness. We would say, you know, you could say he's a Nirmanakaya aspect. He's a manifesting in a human form, because that's the only way we can see him. But there's some beings who can, when they look at His Holiness, they say Chenrezig, because their minds are so pure. I've heard stories like that. When they look at His Holiness, they see like a Buddha, you know. Whereas we see, you know, the kind of grosser aspect, you know.
Thank you.
Ladan?
Sorry, I have problems with this. When we imagine Buddhas, or we must imagine them in front of us, and they used to say imagine them as not solid, as a like a light body.
Yes.
And
Yes.
sometimes is it like a preliminary no like is it
I mean, to help us to be able to eventually see the
yeah,
body.
exact you
Well, that's one way of, it's always purifying our mind, because we're visualizing something less concrete, because everything in our mind feels very concrete all the time. So it's a way in Tantra, it's a method in Tantra to kind of break down our concrete concepts and appearances. And of course, eventually, it's for sure, if you keep doing that, it's purifying your mind so much that eventually, you would eventually be able to see, you know, the actual image of Tara appearing in the front of you when you have a certain level of, you know, inner capacity in your meditation, for sure. So you could say it's a preparation. It might take a long time, but it's eventually we would want to be able to have a, you know, to see in our meditation when we sit down the vision, you know, clear vision of an actual Buddha. Lama Tsongkhapa, for example, when you read his life story, he had visions, you know, of the Buddhas just appearing in front of him, of Manjushri.
Mm-hmm.
So you could say it's a preparation. It's slowly purifying our mind, so eventually we would have that experience, slowly. Yeah.
And when you said I just lost it, I didn't write it down, I don't remember. When they have with ornament, they are not which body they are when
That's
they
his enjoyment body, or Sambhogakaya.
Sambhogakaya.
Sambhogakaya is the Sanskrit, and enjoyment bodies, So that body is always in bliss. It's completely, the whole body, it's not like nothing, it's always in bliss, always in great compassion for all sentient beings, made of wisdom. So when our mind, it's hard to imagine, but when we realize emptiness, our true nature, then we just have a nature body, you know. When we have a direct perception of emptiness and we achieve this Dharmakaya body, it's not possible for us to be reborn with this gross body. We spontaneously have a Buddha body, you know, a body that's just made of bliss, light, and it's in the nature of emptiness. It's in every pore is in the nature of wisdom. Every pore touches all sentient beings, can see the mind of all beings. Every pore has great spontaneous compassion for all beings. You know, it's just that's just what oozes from the Buddha. You know, a Buddha body. It's not flesh, blood, bone. Of course, they can take a body of flesh, blood, and bone just so we can see them. But then after that, they absorb back into the Dharmakaya again. So it's kind of hard to imagine, but it's possible. You know, we get these Buddha bodies. I mean, when I look at the lifestyle, when I look at Lama Zopa Rinpoche, I mean, he was in a Rinpoche was in a body like ours, but his lifestyle was completely different. I mean, there was no, you know, Rinpoche was all the time thinking about others, not lying down, not sleeping. You know, teaching, everything was Dharma, you know. So yeah, he had this like jacket. They often say the Buddhas take on like a jacket. They put on a coat so we can see them. You know? The coat is this body. But you know, when you look at Lama Zopa Rinpoche's life, when you look at His Holiness, it's like there's no way their mind's like ours. So different, you know. So then you see that, okay, it seems far away, but it's possible, you know. And all then you know with Rinpoche you really got that there's no way Rinpoche's got this, and he's not a normal person in that body. They have another body. They have these inner Buddha bodies, you know, that are functioning in a whole other different level and consciousness than us right now. But their only reason to be here is to bring us to that level, you know, to where they are. So we no longer have to take these bodies, have to suffer, you know. So it's very clear when you're around some of these high teachers that they're not in they're nowhere anywhere near our plane right now, you know. B?
Hi, Venerable Angie. I have a question related to the four bodies of the Buddha. Actually, two related questions. So one is the definition of enlightenment. Does that mean that someone would achieve all four bodies? And the second question is, are the four bodies achieved simultaneously, or is there like a sequence, as in like, is there something such as one reaches the state of Dhammakaya but not yet gain the ability to, you know, have the Nakaya or Rupakaya?
So your first question, yeah, enlightenment means, certainly in terms of Tantra, this Sutra Tantra, full enlightenment means the achievement of these four bodies. And we're meaning four bodies because I didn't mention this Svabhavakaya. There's also another body, but I didn't want to over-confuse everyone. I just started to focus on the Dharmakaya, which is already a lot. But the nature body is also just, it's an aspect of the emptiness of the Buddha's mind, you know. And another body that you just by the way have when you achieve the Dharmakaya. So my understanding is, of course, when you practice in the High Yoga Tantra and you go through the three bodies of the Buddha meditation, you go from one to the next to the next. But as I understand it, once you achieve Dharmakaya, you simultaneously have the other bodies. I don't think you have to train once you achieve the Dharmakaya. That's something you can find out in the Tantric grounds and paths, though, as well, when you practice the Tantric grounds and paths. Because there is levels where you have, there's different levels of clear light meditation, the impure illusory body, the pure illusory body, the meaning clear light, the actual clear light. But I think when you actually achieve what you call full enlightenment, then you have spontaneously those four bodies. But there's a process through that where you're a training in these bodies, which without me looking up, and it gets a bit complicated, I can't answer right now, but I think to say when you achieve full enlightenment, then you would have the 4 bodies. Does that help?
Yes, yes, thank you.
But it'd be very interesting is to study the tantric grounds and paths, which I have done, but I would need to refresh my mind. But yeah, at the level of full enlightenment, you would have these 4 bodies. So because we have about 10-15 minutes left, so just to cover what we need to qualify us to practice Tantra. So if we know, for some of us, so how many of us here, if you don't mind me asking, how many of us here have taken, if you want to put your hand up, and if you don't want to, you want to keep it private, that's totally fine too. How many of us have taken Tantra, Kriya Tantra or High Yoga Tantra initiations? You can put your hand up, but if you don't want to say, that's okay. Okay. I think a couple of the rest of you have as well, but yeah, most of us haven't really taken Tantra initiations yet. Am I right? Rick? No, not yet. No, Rick. Joanne? So you have Chenrezig, Tara, Medicine Buddha, none of these, nobody's, okay. So we can just keep it at the level of, so when we're thinking about taking, what do we need to qualify us to take, the first one you would be looking at to take is at the level of Kriya Tantra, which I mentioned, I think, last week, the lower Tantras. Medicine Buddha, Chenrezig, Tara, Manjushri. So what do we really need for that? Well, we need to practice, we need to have a good understanding of the 3 principles of the path. Renunciation, bodhicitta and emptiness. So we've been studying these through the modules. So that we need to have a bit more grounding in these 3 principles of the path. And then, of course, what else do we need? Well, we need a teacher to give the initiation, a guru. We receive tantric empowerment or initiation and other elements to deepen the practice. So let's just go in a little bit to the role of the teacher. So again, we covered this in the teacher module. Relying on a spiritual teacher was module 4. We did that last year. I'll just check my notes, what else I want to say about that. So, of course, the main role of the guru really is, for us, is a sense of, especially someone at the sort of level who's giving initiations. Of course, you need someone qualified to give your initiation. But, what the role of the guru is really a source of inspiration for us, isn't it? Someone we feel inspired by. A teacher or spiritual mentor who we feel inspired by and who also has the qualifications to give tantric empowerment. So because I was going to go into this a little bit more, but I have spent a little bit time on the bodies of a Buddha. But if we see here what Lama says, it's not enough merely to know why such self-transformation is necessary and possible. We must also generate strength and confidence that will enable us to follow this radical approach to fulfillment. In other words, we need to feel inspired. So it's really what I was just mentioning before. The biggest inspiration for a tantric practice is actually meeting someone who's a great tantric practitioner, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, like His Holiness, like Lama Yeshe. And of course, we just had recently in this area another great master, Chado Rinpoche, who came to the Bay Area to give he just gave many empowerments, And one gentleman who, when I was leading the practice day, I think I mentioned that at the end of the practice day, one gentleman who just popped in for the practice day said, that when he arrived at Land of Medicine Buddha, he didn't even know this Lama was, or I don't know if he knew or he heard that this Lama was here, and he could feel the level of peace, and it was so much deeper there, and it was because of the presence of Chado Rinpoche. So definitely we need the 3 principles of the path when we want to enter into Tantra. But what's also very inspiring is to have the opportunity to be around some of these lamas who give initiations, who practice Tantra, and we get to feel what that kind of realization must be like, just being in their presence, just being around them, how that shifts our mind into a little bit of different gear. I mean, myself, just being around Chado Rinpoche for 5 days, you almost feel like when you're around these lamas, they do something to your mind where you feel like your mind has this ability to move in a way you never experienced before. It wakes your mind up in a way that you didn't feel before, being in their presence and receiving these initiations. It gives a great amount of inspiration, a great amount of confidence in our ability to maybe try these praxis, to do these praxis, and to keep going. So that's really the biggest role of the guru. And of course, when we do tantric praxis, once we take a practice, for example, Chenrezig practice or Tara practice, when we take the initiation, our job then becomes to try and unify ourselves, our body, speech and mind, with the source of inspiration, the guru, by seeing the guru and deity as inseparable. So I mentioned last session about deity yoga, how we try to unify our mind with the qualities of the deity through visualization, through mantra, through prayers, through dissolution of the deity into our heart, and, identifying with that quality that's arisen in us through that practice, the quality of the deity. There's another aspect to that. Once we take initiation, it becomes what we call guru yoga, where we try to train our mind through the trainings that we used in the spiritual teacher module, remembering the kindness and the quality of that particular teacher, training our mind as we do at the time of initiation to see the guru and the deity as inseparable. And there's special reasons for that in tantric practice. Why we practice not just deity yoga, but what we call guru yoga. Because in tantric practice, the guru is seen as the source of all our inspiration, all our realizations. From their teachings, advice, initiation, everything really, when we think about it, comes from our spiritual teachers. Where would we be without spiritual teachers and mentors? And especially at the level of Tantra, there's a special reason in psychology where we start to train our mind through the sutra training of the spiritual teacher, remembering the kindness and qualities, and a tantric training combined of seeing the guru and the deity as inseparable, as a special ability in a way to really kind of speed up our experience of that practice, our experience of becoming one with the deity. There's a special psychology in doing that practice. So then we can see, if we're going to take an initiation with a guru, we need to be able to see that being in a pure way. Because the training is to see the being as the deity. And the inseparability is that. So when we see Tara, when we visualize Tara, we think Tara and the guru are inseparable. And that brings about a special blessing in the practice when we do that type of meditation. And it's not something we can just do and feel heartfelt, in the beginning. It's a training of the mind to see that guru and deity is inseparable through, through the sutra and tantra training combined. So it's not something easy. It doesn't happen quickly. But from the beginning, when we take the initiation, we try to develop that quality. So, for example, if you receive maybe your first initiation from one particular lama, it's very good to have a picture of that lama on your altar, a picture of the deity, and then, attend more teachings with that lama. Take the commentary of that practice for that teacher, and slowly, you start to see more and more the qualities of that teacher, and trying to unify that experience of their qualities and their kindness with the qualities and kindness of the deity. So again, this takes some blending of practice. It's not something we can do right away, but something to be aware of, that when we take an initiation from a teacher, they do become your guru. That you immediately have that sort of connection with them. You know, that brings about that connection. So it's good for us to take time when we decide to go to initiation, to take time to maybe, as I mentioned in the sutra module, to check out the qualities of that teacher, check with other sangha, check with other practitioners, and find out that qualities of that teacher, because we will have a commitment at the time of the initiation to try and practice that when we're doing that practice, and to try and keep our perception of that teacher as clean as possible, as pure as possible. That will have a great impact on one's practice if we can do like that. But it does take some training. So Guru Yoga is going to be big part of our tantric practice, starting to develop and become familiar with that and what it means. And as I've mentioned here, all realizations coming from the Guru, what does that mean? And of course, our Guru is also a reflection of our innate inner Guru, our fundamental clarity of mind, our fundamental clear light nature. So that Guru is an outer reflection of that. So we want to make sure we keep that reflection, that perception, as pure as possible. At the level of High Yoga Tantra, just mentioning these right now, tantric empowerment or initiation. So at the level of Kriya Tantra, the empowerments are more simple. You know, usually it involves receiving a blessing in one's body, speech and mind. So for example, when we did the practice day on Sunday, during the Tara initiation, we do this receiving the blessing of the body, speech and mind, and that's very similar to what you would receive when you receive a lower Tantra initiation, similar to that. It's because most of us are probably not ready for High Yoga Tantra yet. We're not going to go into any of the details here, but it's a more complex initiation, and you would receive these kind of 4 more complex empowerments at the level of High Yoga Tantra. So either at the level of Kriya Tantra, when you take that initiation, you would also receive something called Bodhisattva vows. And there are a variety of vows that are like the container for one to be able to achieve bodhicitta. Just like when we take lay vows, you know, if we take lay vows, no killing, no stealing, no lying, sexual misconduct, and no intoxicants. You know, usually, you know, when we have visiting lamas at centres, we often ask them to give the lay vows, and it's possible to take 1 up to 5 of them, however many you feel. And also when there's a Kriya Tantra initiation, one has to take Bodhisattva vows, and they are basically just like the lay vows are like the container for one to be able to practice morality. They contain our mind. They help to contain our mind in the practice of morality. Similarly, when we take Bodhisattva vows, which are then it helps us to contain our mind to practice bodhicitta. They help to hold our mind in the practice of bodhicitta. And then tantric vows are taken at the level of High Yoga Tantra. So the other thing that you would take at the time of empowerment for a lama is sometimes you receive a mantra to recite or a sadhana. And that basically means a daily practice that includes mantra recitation and commitments. But often at the level of Kriya Tantra initiations, the lamas don't give so much of a commitment. So you're quite fortunate that you can go and receive the initiation. You can take tantric vows. Bodhisattva vows, but you don't always have a daily commitment. So that gives a little bit more ease and flexibility to the mind. And then ideally, if we take an initiation, it's very good to do the retreat if you get the opportunity. Either do it as a daily practice, or if you get the opportunity to do a retreat. In that retreat, you would recite 100,000 in the mantra. And it's called a nearing retreat because it brings you closer to the experience of the deity, you know, doing the mantras, the visualizations, and some of the offering practices, setting up the altar. It all contains you in that retreat in a way where you get more of a deeper experience of that deity. So that's ideally, if you take initiations, what you would want to try and do. Or maybe at the level of Kriya Tantra, at least doing the practice on a daily basis, or doing some of the mantras on a daily basis. And also, I just want to mention, because someone's like, oh, vows, I can't take that, and initiations and sadhana. So as Lama Zoparimshi said, vows and initiations or commitments are not rules, they're protection for our mind, guarding us from creating the causes of suffering. And over time, when we take vows, especially lay vows, so I would really encourage some of you who haven't taken lay vows in refuge, the more we study to think about that, over time they develop in the mind, and slowly the mind becomes more stable, more joyful, and they hold the mind in a way so our praxis become more powerful. The lay vows, the bodhisattva vows, and eventually tantric vows. And all our praxis, all our prayers, everything we do, the more vows we take, the more powerful our praxis become for ourselves and others. Because they're a container, so they're holding our praxis in a very special way in our mind. So it's almost like, as Stan was saying, when we practice morality, the perfection of morality, it holds all the other practices we do, generosity and meditation, emptiness, they're all, you have the practice of morality is always there in the background because we're holding these vows. So I think that's about everything. Oh yes, lamas can be male or female, was someone asked. Yeah, lamas can be male or female for sure, Any other, maybe one other question maybe we could take or comment? Yes, Ladan?
Yes, thank you. I had a possibility to take I think it was empowerment with His Holiness the Dalai Lama on Chenrezig. And then I think I'm a little bit mixed up. Would you please explain the empowerment and is it a tantric? Is it like when you take a higher tantric initiation?
So I think it sounds like, Ladan, you took Chenrezig as a Kriya Tantra empowerment. So one thing I would suggest to everyone, I think it's wonderful once you've taken the other thing is, once we've taken refuge, and we have a sort of grounding in the 3 principles of the path. So some of you have already done these whole modules, So I think it is good to, at a certain point to start thinking about taking maybe like at the level of Kriya Tantra. So one thing I would say, because like Ladan saying, well, I think I took His Holiness and I think it was an empowerment, and I think, so it's very good to write down when you take something and what you take, right? Because then a year later you can't quite remember what you took. So I started early on, fortunately, I've got a small diary, and I write down all the, when you take refuge, when you took refuge. If you've done the DB class, write that down. That's good. You can rejoice. Okay, 2 years with Venerable Angie and Geshe Legsog, and I took DB for 2 years. That's great. You can rejoice, So I would really encourage you to keep a little diary of what you're doing. Not maybe I just went to one class here or one class there, but certainly a diary, some significant Dharma things you did, like, maybe like a retreat, a weekend retreat, or an initiation with a Lama. You need to write that down because you're going to forget. Especially if you start taking a few over time, we're going to forget where we took what, and what the commitment was. When I took my first bodhisattva vows, when I took refuge, very good to write down. Because we won't, if I hadn't written down, there's no way I would remember all the initiations and empowerments I've taken. And and I wrote down specific special teachings or retreats that I went to. So I can look back and remember, and people ask you. So that's one thing. So what an empowerment, I didn't really talk about this either, but an empowerment's really like a communication between you and the Lama at that time, with the Lama's communicating the energy, the quality of that deity to you, So one has to be quite open. One has to have to check the Lama out. Maybe check with your other Western teachers, is this the right time for me to take, and what do I think, and write it down, and you're sure you know what you're taking. And then make sure you have some reading sources so you can read up what you've taken. and be very clear that that you feel a certain level of confidence. So no, you might not have met this teacher before, but then you've read about them, you've heard about them, you've asked some of us older Dharma students about them, and we can also verify that they're qualified teachers because. I remember 20 years ago, we had lamas coming here all the time giving initiations. You just couldn't go to everything. There was so much, We had so many high lamas here. It's not as much as before. And of course, we don't have Lamas Operimshe, we don't have Lama Yeshe. His Holiness isn't travelling as much as he used to. So we have still lamas, a lot of lamas who can give initiations, but not as much as we used to. Hopefully some of the younger lamas who are now coming up, will give more initiations, but it's rarer than it used to be. So so one should pay attention when these things are happening and check in and see if it's the right time to do it. Some of the initiations don't have so many commitments, but you still have, at the level of Kriya Tantra, you have to take Bodhisattva vows, So we need to know a little bit about what Bodhicitta is, before we take them. But basically an initiation is when the Lama, if we're open enough, we have enough merit and karma, and we're open, we have some faith and devotion, they kind of, they give you a kind of transmission on a sort of mind level of the experience of that deity. It's more mind to mind. So it depends where your mind is and what you get. But, as I say, and what helps our mind the most is to have a good, a grounding in the three principles of the path, wanting to take it to benefit all sentient beings, having some faith that we can see that that teacher embodies the qualities of that deity. We have to sort of start to develop that in our own practice, because it's there where the real deep transformation comes, when we can see this quality of the deity, the Lama, being inseparable. But that takes time to develop, but that's where the realization, that's where the blessings come in the practice. So even when the Lama gives the initiation, one of the first things they'll say is, now you need to see me as the deity. You need to feel like you're receiving the initiation from the deity, not some human sitting there with like gold robes. That you actually have to visualize the teacher as the deity from the very beginning. And that again has a sort of cycle. This is the whole thing with Tantra. It's about purifying our ordinary perceptions, our ordinary view of things. And the most direct way, the most powerful way, is to start with the Lama who gives you the deity, the practice. Because at that moment, they transform themselves into that deity. When they're giving the initiation, they transform themselves into the experience, either Chenrezig or Tara or Manjushri. And we need to be in that transmission, that mind transmission at that time of seeing them as a deity. Not getting all spaced out and freaky, but just on a level where we understand that appearances aren't what they are to us right now. It was very easy, when you're around His Holiness the Dalai Lama, when you have the experience, you see your mind kind of opens up in a way anyway, so it can become, in a way you can do that because you feel like when you're in their presence, something else is going on with your mind that you probably haven't experienced before, an openness, a clarity, maybe a peacefulness, depending on which deity you're getting the initiation into. So it's a mind-to-mind transmission at that time, and we have to meditate. When we do the initiation, you meditate. The Lama gives you instructions to meditate in a certain way to receive these blessings. And again, it's waking up these more subtle consciousnesses which have the power to transform, from inside out. Whereas Tantra's outside in, we're working with subtle consciousness, subtle aspects of ourselves inside. Through the visualizations, the way the mantra's vibrating with this more subtle level of part of yourself. We're communicating with a part of yourself that's it's sometimes manifest, but mostly unmanifest. And so the Lama's job is, and our job is to kind of make that more manifest, so we can realize our ultimate nature.
Yes, with the Dalai Lama, it was online, on Zoom. So
Yeah,
it
and
it
that
took
might
like
be
3 days. Yeah.
yeah, and that might be one of the last initiations His Holiness will give actually, because he's not really giving initiations anymore. So you're very fortunate, and that's probably why he did it on Zoom, because mostly initiations are not given on Zoom yet. Not
Yeah.
many lamas do that, but I think His Holiness knew that he wasn't going to travel much, so it gives people the you know the opportunity to still take from His Holiness.
Yeah.
So sorry this is going over a little bit, but we are on our last week, so I mean, so really, I want to say congratulations to all of you who did all these practices, you know, all these modules, you know, Ladan and Bay and Urs and Azan and Joel and anyone else here. I think that's it for now, but we have 2 or 3 others who maybe aren't joining, but they've also been coming. So they're not joining maybe this time, but they've also been coming a lot. So it's wonderful. I really rejoice for you all that you've come to this. And keep practicing, keep going. And as I say, we are going to have some more, you know, we are still, I mean, there is still the module 14, the experiential, the more, you know, integrative practices that we will do in March. So if you can still come to that, it would be great. But you've really covered the main body of the lam-rim modules and Tantra modules. So that's great. Really rejoice. How wonderful. We can all rejoice. And as I say, yeah, just you're welcome to contact me anytime if you have... Oh, no, wait a minute. Stop share. What am I doing? If you have any questions about your practice, that's my job, hopefully, to help you with your practice. So do contact any time. And no, this is not what I want to share. I'm sharing the wrong thing. Trying to find the retreat, the dedication prayers. I think they're maybe here. Try this. No, that's not working. Let's just do some short dedications then. And yeah, I will also, I'll send out the assessment in the next, probably by the weekend, I'll get the assessment out to you. And of course, yeah, and you'll have a good week or two to do that. But yeah, just keep practicing, keep studying the lam-rim. We all, you know, I've been doing it for 25, 30 years. There's no way you don't stop. And developing your meditation practice, that's very important, because you don't want the lam-rim to become just sort of dry, you know. If we don't meditate, we don't purify, it can become kind of just a heady thing, you know. So we need to do all that. Joel?
In that vein, I didn't know that the preliminary practices classes were coming up, but I will sign up for those. But in the meantime, tomorrow at silly o'clock my time in the morning, I don't know if other people have spotted it, that the centre at Santa Cruz that you've just come from, that they're doing a series of classes. I suppose it's like it's a book club, a Buddhist book club.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, Foundation of Buddhist Practice, which I have the book. Other people probably have it because it was mentioned in one of the early modules, and that starts. Let me try and work this out. To not be self-centered and do it in my.
Yeah, no, you're right, Joe. It starts at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. Venerable Chimi's leading that. It's about 6 weeks or something, yeah? So that's
the last one. Yeah, the last one is your time, Wednesday, the 8th of April.
Yeah, so it's about 6 to 8 weeks of practice. So yeah, that's something definitely you can join in. And there's many other classes going on as well, but that's definitely.
I think it's a book club. I'm hoping for a book club.
Okay, right. I think it's a mixture of teaching and discussing and yeah, like that. I think so, yeah. But anyway, yeah, you can try that out for sure. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone. And let's just spend a couple of minutes in however you want to dedicate. I'm going to leave it in your hands. I've been doing enough talking. So let's just spend a couple of minutes to dedicate all the positive energy, past, present, future merits, in whatever way you feel you want to dedicate towards. And also, I want to dedicate for His Holiness the Dalai Lama's long life. You know, may he live at least to 113, if not longer. And also for Lama Zopa Rinpoche's, through their kindness, both of the Guru's kindness really, and Lama Yeshe, it's all due to their kindness that we have these courses at all. And of course our own merit and good karma, but it's mostly because of their kindness. So for Lama Zopa Rinpoche's incarnation to be the unmistaken one to be recognised, and for his development into a great Lama, a great Guru again in that life. Okay, everyone, thank you so much. Sorry for taking you a little bit over time, but wanted to get all the points covered.
Thank you very
And
much.
hope to see you all soon.